कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। नवद्वीप धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Vaishnava. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale. Namaste. Aditya Swami Nityanamani. Namaste, Krishna Vinaya Prabhupada Siddhartha Shri Guru Karuna Shakti Mansi Namini. Narayana Namaste Naruncheva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Vajirayat Nashta Prayeswa Bhatresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavatu Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, and Text 3. Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Deva Adharma Shilasya Sudukitasya Anugrahaye Hacharanti Nunam Utani Bhavyani Janadanasya Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Deva Adharma Shilasya Sudukitasya Anugrahaye Hacharanti Nunam Utani Bhavyani Janadanasya Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Devad Adharma Silasya Sudukitasya Anugrahaye Hacharanti Nunam Utani Bhavyani Janadanasya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Janasya Krishna Dvimukhasya Devat Adharmasilasya Sudukhitasya Anugrahayeha Charanti Nunam Bhutani Mavyani Janardanasya.
Janasya Krishna Dvimukasya Devat Adharmasilasya Sudukhitasya Anugrahaya Charanti Nunam Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Deva Adharma Shilasya Sudukhitasya Anugrahaya Charanti Nunam Bhutani Bhayani Bhavani Charanasya Janardanasya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Janasya Krishna Mukhasya Devat Adharmashilasya Sudukhitasya Anugrahayeha Charanti Nunam Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya.
Janasya Krishna Vimukhasya Devat Adharmashilasya Sudukhitasya अनुग्रहायेह चरन्ति नूनं भूतानि भव्यानि जनार्दनस्य.
Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. Janasya Krishna Vimukasya Devad Adharma Shilasya Sudukitasya Anugrahayeha Charanti Nunam Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, let's do word for word. Janasya, of the common man. Krishna, from the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Vimukasya, of the one who has turned his face against the Lord. Devad, by the influence of external energy. Adharma Shilasya, one who is engaged in irreligion. Sudukitasya, of one who is always unhappy. Anugrahaya, due to being compassionate towards them. Iha, in this world. Charanti, wonder. Nunam, certainly. Bhutani, persons. Bhavyani, great philanthropic souls. Janardanasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sorry. Oh my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. To be obedient to the wishes of the Supreme Lord is the natural position of every living entity. But due only to past misdeeds, a living being becomes averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord and suffers all the miseries of material existence. No one has anything to do but render devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Therefore, any activity other than transcendental loving service to the Lord is more or less a rebellious action against the Supreme Will. All fruitive activity, empirical philosophy, and mysticism are more or less against the sense of subordination to the Lord. And any living entity engaged in such rebellious activity is more or less condemned by the laws of material nature, which work under the subordination of the Lord. Great unalloyed devotees of the Lord are compassionate towards the fallen, and therefore they travel all over the world with the mission of bringing souls back to Godhead, back to home. Such pure devotees of the Lord carry the message of Godhead in order to deliver the fallen souls. And therefore, the common man who is bewildered by the influence of the external energy of the Lord should avail himself of their association. I'm assuming that's the end. Okay. Om Gnati Mirandasya Gyana Gana Shalakaya Chakshu Umlutam Dena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vidati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Scha. Sri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. Sa Advaitam Sa Abhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahaganam Lita Sri Vishakam Vitam Scha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kantana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Rubesya Kripa Sindhi Eva Chapatitanam Pavane Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Peshnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirveshesha Sunyavari Paschatya Charini. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurati Namaha. Ananda Nilamaya Vigrahaya Himabhya Divacha Vishindaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. English translation again of the text. O my Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the subordination of the Lord. Very important point here that's being made about the great souls. So, great philanthropic souls. Philanthropic means charitable or generous. Those souls who know about Krishna consciousness, who are very well versed in Krishna consciousness, they are traveling the world over. That should not be unfamiliar to any member of this International Society of Krishna Consciousness. What our leaders do is travel all around the world. And so, in that sense, they're being very generous because they are doing part the management of the society and also preaching. And the way in which compassion can be shown to fallen souls, the way to do it is to change their minds about what they think of now to what is actually good for them. And a person who changes their mind from enjoying the senses, material senses, into serving the Lord to satisfy the Lord and the Lord's devotees, that person that spreads that kind of information is showing great compassion. That is great philanthropic, generous work. The nature of the fallen souls they are opposed to, their averse means opposed. They are opposed to subordination to the Lord. The Lord has said in Bhagavad Gita, become my devotee, but also surrender yourself to me. You can have a sense of friendship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead only because there's a loving relationship between us and the Lord that we're supposed to cultivate. It's kind of down now, but we're trying to jumpstart it again and trying to build it up. So, to be subordinate to the Lord, as Srila Prabhupada has explained, is to be the servant of a servant of a servant of a servant of a servant, 100 times down servant to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we serve devotees and we serve Guru, we are actually in that position. But we have to understand that we are in that position, the position of being the servant of a servant of a servant of a servant. When we serve a spiritual master, the spiritual master is actually in the line of the parampara. The spiritual master serves his spiritual master, who serves his spiritual master, who serves his spiritual master. Therefore, if we're serving spiritual master, then we are servant of everybody in the line, all the way up to Krishna. So that's our position. So it's actually been worked out for us. Basically, just serve Guru, serve devotees, and you're automatically servant of a servant of a servant of a servant. You're in that position. All you have to do is have that understanding that you're in that position. That's all. But by the arrangement of Srila Prabhupada, we just put there a servant of a servant. Now, that understanding is extremely important because if we don't have that understanding, then our false ego kicks in and we think we are the leaders. Even though, as far as the position is, we've already been put in the position of servant if we would serve. That's all. If we would serve. But if we don't and think that, oh, we got it over this person, I'm like that, and I'm like that, and seeking adoration and seeking prestige and so on, but then our position as servant of a servant becomes debatable, at least. We're not thinking that way. So, the sense of subordination to the Lord is very important. This is how we stay servant, 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 subordinate. We are subordinate. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1, the very first text of the Srimad Bhagavatam. You don't have to pull it up. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the Lord is a supreme enjoyer. The word subordinate is used there also. He says the Lord is a supreme enjoyer, and we are subordinate enjoyers. The senses of the soul really go through a lot of enjoyment in the spiritual world. When we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even now when we're in the material world, the senses still enjoy. Case in point, is prashadam not tasty? Well, the tongue enjoys it. We are serving the Lord, but actually, in the process, we are also enjoying. As Janamaya Swami the other day gave an example of the servant of a governor. The governor is a rich person. By the position that he holds, so much money is given to the governor. The governor has a mansion. You are the personal servant of a governor. Where do you live? Well, you don't live 100 miles away. You live with the governor in the same mansion with the same amenities that he has. And Srila Prabhupada takes it to another level. He says, when all kinds of wonderful eatables are given to the governor, this also happens to the spiritual world. It's given to Krishna. The Krishna will eat some of it. A lot of it is left over. A lot of it is left over. And if it's left over, what happens? The servants get it. So as far as quantity, the servants get more. Quality, same quality the governor gets. The servants get. So it's not a bad position at all to be in, to be the servant of a servant of a servant of a Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, to be obedient to the wishes of the Supreme Lord is the natural position of a living entity. Why? Well, we want to be happy. But happiness is entwined with being obedient to the wishes of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is the one that can make us happy. But when we have a loving relationship where we understand that actually it is me, it is I working to satisfy the senses of the Lord, that will make the Lord happy. And when the Lord is happy, then I will be happy. Because the Lord arranges for my happiness and my protection, even while I'm in the material world. Therefore, whatever is said by the Supreme Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, whatever is said by the pure devotee of the Lord in Srimad Bhagavatam, whatever is said by the spiritual master who is bona fide, I will obey that. Do as I'm told, and that way I will be in a situation where I'll be safe, I'll be protected, and in fact, my life is going to be life that is run by Krishna as a Paramatma. So it's due to Srila Prabhupada's explaining to past misdeeds, what we've done in the past, trying to lord it over material nature, that a living being becomes opposed to being the servant of the Lord. And if one becomes opposed to being the servant of the Lord, then we're just basically trying to say to everybody and to ourselves that we want to stay here in the material world. But the material world is all suffering. There's very little control, if any at all, that we have. We cannot control the weather. Now winter is coming. There's nothing we can do. We can say, winter, or you stop. Give us nice weather again. It's not possible. We don't have a say in it. So all we're trying to do, even in so-called advanced countries, is try to mitigate, to reduce the suffering, the inconvenience that the material energy, material nature imposes on us. But the miseries are still there. Birth is difficult. Taxes are bothersome. Every time we go to some sort of anxiety, sickness can come at any time, and death can come at any time. So as in one lecture, Srila Prabhupada was saying, yes, Maharaj Pariksit was cursed to die in 7 days, but he had 7 days assured, so he could prepare within that 7 days what he had to do. As a matter of fact, he even got advice from Shukadev Goswami as to what a dying person was supposed to do. What is the duty of a dying person? But in answering this question and other questions posed by him, the entire Srimad Bhagavatam was discussed by Shukadev Goswami. He had 7 days to listen, and he heard the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in the 7 days. Srila said he heard it hurriedly. The Srimad Bhagavatam is long, but he was able to hear it in 7 days. And in fact, before Takshaka, the snake bird, came to bite him so that he would leave the world, his mother Uttara also came to him after Sukadeva Goswami spoke. And Uttara wanted a little summary of what he had heard. Quick summary from Maharaj Pariksit. Maharaj Pariksit's mother is Uttara. So his mother wanted to hear what Sukadeva Goswami had told him. And there were some parts of it that says, of course, Srimad Bhagavatam is actually longer. It's been talked about that in different universes. The basic ideas in Srimad Bhagavatam, all there, sometimes quite detailed, so it's not even doing justice to it to use the word basic. But there's some extra information that some other universes have of Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the Lord's activities. What we need to learn about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and how to relate to him, how to serve him, loving devotional service, that's all there, even in this one that we have, the Srimad Bhagavatam here. But there's more. That's practically everything. In Mahabharata, there's more than what Vyasadeva wrote. Others wrote Mahabharata also, other pure souls. And they added more information. So the reason is very simple. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Therefore, we can write and write and write, and someone else writes, they write some other things about him. So that's the details part. The details part definitely changes in one situation after another. It is in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat. There are different details about the activities of Lord Chaitanya. The main thing that happened, both books will talk about it, but some of the details about how things unfolded, it may change. Some things will be mentioned in one and not mentioned in the other, and so on, and back and forth. So you read both, you get a good sense of Lord Chaitanya's activities. And that's everywhere. Still, to come back to this, it all boils down to the same thing. Render devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So if we do any other activity other than serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we make that a priority, then we're being rebellious against the Supreme Personality of Godhead's will. Because his will and his directions, saying, he came right out and said, abandon all varieties of religion, Savadharma Parite, Dhamma Kam Sharanam Praja, and surrender to me. Aham Tam Sava Papi, I will deliver you from any sinful reaction. Sinful reactions is what makes us get into another body, another life here in the material world. Jesus says, I promise, you surrender to me and I'll take you away from this situation. Surrender to me means you're coming to me. No sinful reaction means no karma. No karma means all activities are karma. No karma means only spiritual. We get to go back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead after this body. But he says, when you surrender, it also means other activities that we take seriously, as we just mentioned, that's rebellious towards the Supreme Personality of God. So then what do? Whatever we are doing now, Yat Karosi Yat Asnasi, Yat Jehoshi Dadasi, Yat, whatever we're doing, whatever we're eating, whatever we're offering, whatever we're giving away, you consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead first. Go through offering to the Lord first before anything else is done. Just like we've been told, when we cook, don't taste it. Everything should be offered to the Lord first. He's the first one to taste it however way he wants to taste. Because the senses of the Lord does the activities of other senses. They are interchangeable in their activities. Therefore, he can look, he can touch, if he wants to, and still that can replace the physical eating that we are used to. The essence of it, the Lord looks, and then it becomes the Lord's mercy prasadam, Mahaprasadam. So Shiva Prabhupada just puts out a statement that no one has anything to do but render devotion service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. That should be the understanding that we should have, because this is the way it is in the spiritual world. Everybody renders loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. That's life. That's real life. If we do that, we are in line with the will of the Lord. And if we don't do that, then we're against the will of the Lord. Therefore, in the material energy, we take only things that are necessary to prepare ourselves to work directly or indirectly to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then our employment, if it is totally material, and most of us, that's the situation that we're in, those that are working, then we have to spiritualize it by making the workplace a place to remember Krishna. Put pictures, if you can play music, whatever the situation is. You play bhajans, like that. And so you're remembering Krishna. When you get paid, you take part of it and give to Krishna Consciousness Project, especially the temple. Then that's been spiritualized. You come home, practically everything you're doing, you're chanting the Lord's name in your mind as you're going on, or sometimes out loud. That way we're remembering Krishna all the time. Srila Prabhupada says all fruitive activity, all empirical philosophy, and mysticism that the yogis like, they are more or less a sense of going against or averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. A devotee does not need to be involved in fruitive activity. Everything that we do with the Lord in mind. Give to the Lord, give to the devotees, give to the spiritual master. If we have some intelligence and we go into philosophy, whatever we think about, we have to connect it with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All activities, including even mysticism. And I know, there were some of us sannyasis who could read minds. My own spiritual master was one of them. But he never used it for his own. He was always using it to guide. But he could read minds, so basically you couldn't lie to him even if you wanted to, because he would know. But then he would guide you in Krishna consciousness, what you have to do. And he made it easier for some of us, because I know he's reading my mind. So I just went and told him everything that I'm having problems with. Just go right out and tell him. And it's like he realized you're talking the truth, therefore, then he'll smile at you and then begin to give you directions, specific directions. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj says that every spiritual master is a spiritual doctor. But think about that. Every spiritual master is a spiritual doctor. What do doctors do? Well, they heal us. They give us the medicine. Then we have to take. But if you go to the doctor, what do? Doctor, I'm here. All right, here's a medicine for you. Of course not. They're going to say, what's wrong with you first? State your case. State your case, and then from what you've said, and I ask you a few questions, I'll tell you what to do. Therefore, you state your case to the spiritual doctor. Never be embarrassed to tell the spiritual master what's going on. We are in a disease condition in the material world. This is a disease condition. We've heard it so many times. So go to the spiritual master and tell him about it. Some will say, but my spiritual master, I can't reach him, or that's no problem. We have spiritual masters that give initiation. Everybody else that didn't initiate you, that's a spiritual master, is a Shiksha Guru. They are all in that position, a Shiksha Guru. So whichever one that's near you, tell them about it. But if the situation, as we talked, is so embarrassing, whatever it is, that we feel that we're going to be extremely embarrassed if we let out that problem, go to the picture of Srila Prabhupada, or go to the Murti of Srila Prabhupada when you're in the temple, and tell Srila Prabhupada. I'm thinking about this particular devotee in this Prabhupada disciple lived in Vrindavan for a long time. Maybe the name will come to me later on. But in the lecture, he said, Dinabandhu Prabhu. Okay. So Dinabandhu Prabhu said in a lecture in Harrisburg. In fact, he talked about a pastime. His own god brother, who was aware that other devotees were cooking for Srila Prabhupada, and he wanted to also cook for Srila Prabhupada. He wished he could get that. It's always a wonderful sentiment because the gopis in Vrindavan, they also wish that Krishna would come to the house. This like we're going to Mother Yashoda's house. So that sentiment is actually a nice sentiment. So this devotee also wished that he could. Now you know what the Lord is. You wish something, Paramatma has already heard about it. So if it's a service, the arrangement is going to be made. So one day, Srila Prabhupada, it was quite cold. I don't know where he was at that time, but that particular devotee, Kartikeya, his name is Kartikeya. So, Kartikeya Das. So, Srila Prabhupada said that he wanted halava. And so when Kartikeya heard about it, he said he would make the halava. And so he started making the halava, but he used the wrong ingredient. I'm just gonna be now it was a grain, all right, but it wasn't your normal grains that's used for making halava. He was thinking that he would make more nutritious halava. So he was thinking in terms of health. And so he made this halava. It looked dark. Halava usually is not dark. It's like golden. So when he finished, and he just went to Srila Prabhupada and offered obeisances, he was so excited. He puts this halava in front of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, just by the color, he knew that it can't be the proper halava. So he said, what is this? Then he made his hands like this. Here. Motioning that, take it away. I don't want it. And so Kartikeya's heart was broken. He's waited so long to make halava. And now he's making halava, and Srila Prabhupada has rejected the halava that he made. So this is Dinabandhu Prabhu talking about this story. So Kartikeya goes to the temple, and he goes, offer obeisances to the deities, goes to the picture of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. That means his spiritual grandfather. And he starts pouring his heart to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. And he was very emotional. Next thing you knew, behind him, a voice started calling his name. Kartikeya? Kartikeya? He turned around, it was Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, yes, Srila Prabhupada. Bring the halava. Go bring the halava. So Kartikeya went back, got the halava, gave some of it to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ate it. Is there some more? Kartikeya said, yes, bring more. Because he ate the entire, he ate the Kartikeya said there's none left. He ate the entire halava. And I'm trying to think, I've forgotten what he used for it because it was just at the tip of my tongue. But it wasn't your regular suji he didn't use that. He didn't use that. So Srila Prabhupada ate it all. Why? The sentiment behind this disciple wanted to do something that he thought Srila Prabhupada would love. So he poured his heart out in making that. Secondly, he got the mercy from the spiritual grandfather because he went to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. So Dinabandhu's point was that sometimes the spiritual master may be a little intense with us, but the spiritual grandfather is always nice and loving to us, as we know even in our material life. The grandfather tends to be nicer to the grandchildren than the actual parents of the children are. Because the parents of the children are going to raise you, do the right thing. Sometimes you'll be forced to do the right thing till you get used to doing the right thing. But the spiritual grandfather is already retired from raising children, so you can, for them, My parents would deal with the situation. That would just pour so much love on my dear grandchild. Hmm? So sometimes when situations are too difficult, hmm, that then it's we need help with it. And it's a negative thing that we want to get rid of in our lives. But we feel too embarrassed to tell the spiritual master about it, even though he's a spiritual doctor. Well, the spiritual grandfather is also a spiritual doctor. You can go to see the Prabhupada and pour your heart out to your Prabhupada. Just like I care we did with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was his spiritual grandfather. Hmm? So the spiritual masters are going around the world, all over the world, to bring souls back to Godhead. And that is the best philanthropic work. Hmm? They really, really, really deserve not only recognition, even though they don't want it, they're serving, but from the bottom of our hearts, we should be very thankful for those who are putting in that. The spiritual master going around the world doing just that. On the order of Srila Prabhupada, travel. Hmm? I remember Madhuha Prabhu, one statement made by Srila Prabhupada to him about helping with the Rath Yatra. If he bought a truck, I mean, things weren't so easy, but now he has a truck and he also has a van, and he brings all of this Festival of India material one place to another. Hmm? Sets it up just for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath around North America. He goes to Canada and then the United States. Hmm? One instruction given by a spiritual master. So the spiritual master travels around, and here's the advantage. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 54. We've heard it quite a few times, but I'll recite it here again. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastre Koi, Lava Mata Sadhu Sange, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Hmm? Sadhu Sangha, association of pure devotees. Hmm? All the revealed scriptures say this. Sarva Shastre Koi. Lava Matra, even for a moment of association, Sadhu Sange, brings all success. Sarva Siddhi, there is all success. Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastre Hoy. Lava Mata Sadhu Sange, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. So, Sarva Shastri, the verdict of all revealed scriptures, the conclusion here, the verdict is that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. The spiritual masters carry the potency of the Lord. Physically, outwardly, they look like one of us, but they carry this energy of the Lord, and the Lord speaks through them. Srila Prabhupada said his whole purpose is to give all the books that he wrote. The purpose were dictated by Krishna. The Lord speaks to the spiritual master, who then relates the information, spiritual information and advice and medicine, spiritual medicine, to us. So even Lavamatra, an 11th of a second, a very small moment of association with the spiritual master, or the pure devotee, a person becomes successful. It's interesting how some people who have been, even religious for a while, they can feel the energy when somebody else is around. Energy that is good, or energy or that's not good, they can actually tell just by being around. So a moment's association with the pure devotee. And so the devotees of the Lord that are traveling around and sharing Supreme Personality of Godhead's message about not associating with the material energy for our enjoyment, but turning our senses into serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to his dictation. When we come around people like that, they look just like us, and they speak just like us, but they are empowered by the Lord, and they can, in fact, erase our energy. to make it spiritual. And that's why, due to compassion by devotees, we say this mantra. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhibhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Which means I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vishnu following devotees, Vaishnav devotees, followers of Vishnu, of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees. The desires of everyone, whether they know it or not, is to be a happy servant of a servant of a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they deliver to us what it takes to be that kind of servant, the understanding and the activities that are required to be the servant of a servant of a servant of a Lord. So they're just like desire trees. That's what we really want. Devotees want that, non-devotees are not understanding that, but still, the spirit devotees of the Lord go around the world to give that information. And after giving it repeatedly, and that's what works in every situation, when you hear and hear repeatedly, you become convinced after a while. Therefore, repeated hearing is extremely important, constant hearing. So they just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. That's why they do what they do. So kripa sindhibhya evacha. Kripa means mercy. And Sindhu, kripa sindhibhya evacha. Sindhu means ocean. So these devotees, they are a great ocean of mercy. The devotee is an ocean of the mercy of the Lord. And he wants to distribute this mercy. Christ did the same thing. He was God conscious, pure devotee of the Lord. Many times you see in different places in our Shastra, Christ is called a Vaishnava because he lived like a Vaishnava. Exactly. He knew so much about God consciousness, but he was not satisfied in keeping this knowledge within himself. So if he had lived alone in God consciousness and not preached, then he would not have met this crucifixion. But because he was a devotee of the Lord and naturally compassionate to these fallen souls, he wanted to make them, or he wanted to take care of others to make them God conscious. They tried to stop him from preaching God consciousness. Those even so-called scribes and Pharisees at that time, but he continued to do so. Sometimes they even attacked him, or they tried to attack him. This is before they crucified him. They tried to attack him, but he had mystic cities and he could make himself very, very, very small, like atomic. He could do it immediately. So he did, and of course, nobody can see atoms, therefore they thought he had disappeared. But this is just a mystic city that he had. So devotees at risk of their own lives, they even go to spread Krishna consciousness. And so Krishna is very, 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 notes the very, let me put it this way, notes what the devotees do and is very happy with how they serve that way. And therefore, they are very dear to the Lord. Just like it said in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yad idam paramam guhyam mat bhakti shvavidasyati bhakti mayim aram kritva mam iveshashati asamsaya. Krishna says, without a doubt, those who explain the supreme secret to the devotees, devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end, such a person will come back to me. And that is 1868. Nacha tasman manushesu kastin ma paya krita ma bhavita nacha me tasmat anya pridyatato bhuvi. And he says, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor would there ever be one more dear. Which means Krishna wants this open secret to be revealed to devotees and non-devotees alike. Everybody, Bhakti Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj explains, everybody is a devotee of the Lord. Some know it, And those that are called devotees, and some don't know it, and they're called non-devotees. But actually, everybody is surrendered to either the spiritual energy or the material energy. The material energy also belongs to the Lord. So in that sense, everybody actually is connected to the Lord. We cannot be disconnected with the Lord. It's not possible. The very existence, everything exists because the Supreme Personality of Godhead causes it to exist. In the material world, it's Mahavishnu. The Mahatattva is made by Mahavishnu. The universe also comes from out of the pores of Mahavishnu. Time is set up, and then life goes on in the material world. Those in the spiritual world, as been said, in the spiritual sky, every now and then they see a cloud, just like we see clouds in the sky. Every now and then. Sometimes the sky is clear. In the same way they observe. But that one is just the Mahatattva. And so when they see the Mahatattva, that means the Lord has breathed out. The Lord Mahavishnu has breathed out. And the universes are now coming into this space covered by the material sky. And when the Lord breathes in and everything disappears into him, then those in the spiritual world see a clear spiritual sky. So he's gone. Everything is inside the Lord. So that's why it says every now and then. So when the Lord Mahavishnu breathes in, then it's clear sky to them. When he breathes out, the Mahatattva is there. Like that. But that's how they see it in the spiritual world. Now, devotees go out to preach. Sometimes they meet opposing elements. We should never give up just because somebody is trying to oppose us. That's just the nature of this material world. Mamcha yoga bicharina bhakti yogena sevati. We should serve the Lord unfailing in all circumstances. There was one Mataji that was distributing Srila Prabhupada's books in an airport. Forget which airport. So one man, she approached one man with the books and tried to convince her to take a book. The man acted really demonic. He got upset. He actually knocked all the books from his Mataji to the floor. Some of the other passengers that were going to travel, they all saw what happened. Did Mataji say anything to him? No. He walked away. The Mataji just simply picked up all the books, to the Prabhupada's books, and turned around and went to the next person and continued the distribution of the books. It did not bother her. There will be opposing elements. That's just the way life is. But we should go on anyway. That's compassion. We leave the results to Krishna. The Lord himself shows so much compassion. He appears in his different forms here in the material world, out of compassion. He has appeared in his original form. He's appeared as Lord Chaitanya. This is all to show mercy to the conditioned souls. And then he makes arrangements for his other servants to appear, sons, other devotees to appear and also help. Sometimes he appears in different incarnations. So he appeared on this planet and spoke Bhagavad Gita for the compassion, out of compassion for fallen souls. And then he came as the incarnation of Lord Buddha to show compassion to the animals who were being killed. And then he appeared as a half man, half lion for his one devotee who was being persecuted badly, Prahlad Maharaj. So the conclusion is that the Lord is so compassionate upon the fallen souls within this material world that sometimes he comes himself or sometimes he sends his devotees and his servants to fulfill his desire to help all the fallen souls come back home, back to Godhead. So that's what we are faced with. And it's a wonderful but challenging task to turn the minds of people who are getting more and more and more confused. Even in this country, people are more divided than ever. We're talking about non-devotees, and they are the majority in this population here. They are divided just because of politics. Kamala Harris is not God. Donald Trump is not God. But people, people are too busy getting all shook up because of him, or why didn't he get it, or why didn't he get it? Forgetting that the ruler of the real president is God himself. They forgot that. And emotionally, they're going after two people who I don't know what extent do they actually care about or what they really can do. The Lord is all powerful. The Lord is all powerful. And because of that, even families are splitting up. It's very unfortunate. You don't understand what the real purpose of life is. That's why it's so important to travel around and let people understand. Save your soul, not these physical bodies. Physical bodies are unimportant. So that's the message that we should, in fact, give to everyone. Otherwise, everybody's mind that's adulterated by material, just so much dirt, practically, for lack of a better word, in the minds of material, thinking that the solution will come through the material energy. But the solution is surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should also just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And I'll just mention briefly the situation where other religions think that they should dominate, the situation in Bangladesh. Now, Krishna does so many things. And as terrible as the situation is now, for the first time in the whole world, ISKCON is being mentioned by name because of what's happening. ISKCON is being mentioned by name. We have been lumped with Hinduism and Hinduism and Hinduism. For the first time, people are hearing the International Society. So people begin to ask, what is ISKCON? And this is a society that will save this world. And so even for a situation that is difficult, just that the Pandavas went through difficult situations, but the people in Hastinapur knew what was happening with them. They knew. So it drew attention to them because of what Duryodhana was doing that was negative towards the Pandavas. But the Pandavas got more popular that way. So see, this situation is happening in Bangladesh, but now I'm hearing Palki Sharma and so many of these people talking. They mention ISKCON by name now. And I love it. I wanted the world to know. This society is called ISKCON. Now they can separate ISKCON from the whole umbrella of Hinduism. So yes, the situation will come, but the Lord does things in so many ways, so many strategies the Lord uses. And every time when things are under control, by the time this ends up, many people will know ISKCON by name now and separate it from a regular Hinduism. So and it will end just like the Pandavas went the 12 years and the 13th year incognito. It also ended. They came back and there was a war, and Krishna got rid of all the demons. We're not saying that what is happening is wonderful any more than Krishna. Any more than the Pandavas losing their kingdom and having to live in the forest was wonderful. Of course not. It wasn't. But it always there's something behind it. Krishna always has a plan. That's the point we want to make. It always has a plan. So for the first time, we're hearing our name internationally now. We are already an international society. And they mentioned that too. We're an international society and we do good things for people, food for life. They're talking about all the good things now that ISKCON does by name. It's because of this one country and what happened. Krishna's strategy is wonderful. Even when things seem to be going back, he always has a strategy going on. All we have to do is just be submitted to him, go by his plans, and we'll be all right. Shira Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, dear devotees. So now this is the time to unmute yourself. And if you have some things to share, realizations, questions to ask someone, we can do that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you
Hare
very
Krishna.
much. I was just so inspired by hearing about Madhuha Prabhu. And the way, and we hear this so many times. I mean, Srila Prabhupada also took one instruction from his Guru Maharaj and went forward. And we see so many. And then you were talking about the Mataji who, took Prabhupada's instruction again. And as she's giving out books, she stayed calm through adversity. And
Yes.
it gives us a lot of inspiration on how to go forward with our choices. We get
very important.
Sucked into reacting, but thank you very much for mentioning those two. For me, that was the gist of your class, is how to be inspired, how to look for these kinds of things. I mean, it's there all around us. It's been there. It's like Prabhupada used to say, I'm not making anything new up. It's been there, and I'm giving this to you. These examples are around us. We need to open our eyes and see how people are, how devotees are making their choices and how they are going forward, and how we need to try.
Yes. Very, very important. And that's trying to be able to try comes through sadhusanga. Associating, getting ideas. And I remember Bhagavad Prabhu did, in fact, discuss book distribution, and he said that some of the book distributors will discuss among themselves a strategy that they may have used, a new strategy that may have worked, and other people learn from it, and they try to incorporate that in how they also do. The whole bottom line is how to get the message to the world the world that's starving for that, whether they know it. For want of Krishna consciousness, people are actually suffering. The Sri Prabhupada says all the time. Thank you very much, Martin. Oh, and by the way, that pastime about this devotee, Kartikeya, that did not use suji to make the halava. He used cream of wheat because he thought that was more nutritious. And he used cream of wheat. And Sri Prabhupada could tell the difference immediately. But finally, he gave mercy to him by eating it all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other comments? And there's just an appreciation on the chat. Madhavi Gourangi Mataji says, thank you so much for your wonderful class. All glories to Guru, all glories to Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you, Pariksit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Go to the
PowerPoint. That last point you were making about how sometimes in the midst of seemingly bad things that are going on, you were mentioning Bangladesh, how there's like a silver lining, and how Krishna, he uses situations we don't really understand how they manifest.
Yeah.
And it kind of tests our patience a little bit, because the instant the instant that we look at, we say, oh, well, this is a very challenging situation, this shouldn't be happening, and in many cases a lot of times it shouldn't happen. But then when we sit back and we reflect in history, and then we say, this whole situation, the whole course of history may not have, has changed as a result of this one activity, and it actually seemed to be kind of an inauspicious activity. But there were so many, there was so much growth that came out of it. But it's hard to see at that particular moment. And I think it caused one of the qualities of devotional service that Rupa Goswami mentions is patience.
Yes.
That we have to have. And I think just if you could just maybe just say something about that, about how our reaction and how, like, the way we become, how do we become patient? Because sometimes it requires us to act as well. You know, sometimes there's a need for us to act, but also understanding how does Krishna have a plan here, and the unfoldment of that plan.
How to act? We should act, but based on the guidance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, I'll say the Pandavas, because the Pandavas faced so many situations, but they acted or waited based on the instruction that was given to them by the oldest brother, Yudhishthira. Or sometimes they waited based on what they got from Vidura. So they always had instruction. They acted when they had to. In the very end, Arjun looked at the situation with the others in the other side of the or the opposing side at the battle of at Kurukshetra grounds, the holy ground. And he thought materially and said, no, these are my relatives, so I'm not going to fight. So again, he needed advice. He needed advice. The people that had come to the opposing end, they knew that they were relatives. They knew he was a relative, but he didn't care. So when you have to act, when we act in unison under the instructions of the authorities, then Krishna will also help us. Srila Prabhupada has set up the authority. The structure was set up by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Chaitanya has given us a spiritual way in which we get close to Lord, learn to love the Lord through the chanting, and he showed the example of what to do when he was here in 48 years of his life, giving 48 years to this particular planet in Navadvip, and then the whole of India. Srila Prabhupada has showed us the managerial way in which we go about things. The basic things should be kept the same, but there is change in this world. So when, different things happen, like right now, before 2020, we're not preaching on Zoom, but now we are. So things do change, but we use it in order to serve the Lord. So that those changes, as long as we are still using the primary things, not basic, but the primary things, then that's fine. Our mantras have not changed, even though we say it on Zoom now, but the mantras are the same mantras. Just the way of delivery has changed a little bit. So when the instructions that are given are followed, and the one thing I really want to stress before this lecture ends is that people have to understand what the GBC stands for. The GBC setting up for ISKCON is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Saraswati Thakur Maharaj's idea, who he told Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada obeyed the instructions and set it up like that. And it has been the life-saving board for this society because Srila Prabhupada's son was going to try to legally take over ISKCON. Had the GBC not been there, had his father not set up things that way, it would have been very, very difficult for the society not to be lumped as father has died and this is his assets and my son says I want it. It could have happened that way. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, knowing what could happen down the line, and all of the acharyas are like that too. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had visions of what's happening in Mayapur now. Different countries, devotees coming and all chanting Jaya Sachinanda. He said he saw this. And that was before his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, became a spiritual master, before Srila Prabhupada met him, and he became a spiritual master, and the instruction was given to him to spread all over the world. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had already seen what was happening in Mayapur. He had already seen it. How important our parampara is. So through that, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj also said, set up GBC. When you get books, when you get money, print books. And then you preach in English language around the world. And now we are in a situation where the name of ISKCON is going to come out, Civil Power Society. Mm-hmm. It is to a situation that's most unfortunate, true enough. But everything that happens, remember, we are also doing Zoom now through a very unfortunate situation called COVID-19. That's also an unfortunate situation. People die for it. But what happened? Now we don't have to wait till our spiritual master traveling all around the world will come one day to one place of the world and another day to, years and years and years and years before you see one person telling you. Now you see the image electronically. You can stand in one place and teach. And it came from a difficult situation. And here, another difficult situation now is kind of separated from Hinduism. So see, it's going Krishna's ways. It's just incredible. He's the only one that can use a bad situation and make it better from a bad situation. Mm-hmm. And that's the wonderful. The Lord is incredible. I just say it's incredibly incredible. Who can take a bad situation for us is a bad situation, period. But the Lord can take a bad situation and make it good for his devotee. Mm-hmm. So we can't lose. This is the Lord. We cannot lose. Now, to be patient means just to believe that things will, in fact, ultimately, as long as we keep our medicine, our spiritual medicine, we keep taking it, chanting, serving, it will, in fact, happen. Patience goes with tolerance. They go together. So as we use our wisdom and take instructions what to do and what not to do from the GBC, because the GBC is actually ran, their minds are run by Srila Prabhupada himself. He set it up. So when we go like that, then we become more united. Now, there's definitely free speech. Therefore, there are times that some things could be given or told to the GBC, and that's everywhere. When Yudhishthira Maharaj was head, he had spies that would go into the people, not to sabotage. They just want to find out what they're thinking so that he can make the proper decisions for them. Yudhishthira had spies who did that. So we don't have to have spies necessarily, and I don't know whether we do, but the point is, we can speak to our leaders some of the things that we feel, and decisions would be taken. All the things we take into consideration. Some things we may not understand, but as long as they remain, see, that's the great thing. They remain committed devotees, doing the right thing, obeying the regulated principles, and so on. See, the Prabhupada would guide them. And so, for us, when we need to act, we would act. When we don't need to act, we shouldn't act. And the Pandavas are great examples of that. There were times that they were so upset that Bhim and Arjuna wanted to go attack Duryodhana right away, and they were stopped. And then later on, according to Krishna's plans, they met at the Battle of Kurukshetra. Now Arjuna is talking the opposite way. I don't want to fight. But you see, then Krishna said, now you should act. And the conclusion from that is, we will be guided as to when to act and when not to. But right now, what is happening is that we're getting publicity. Period. We're getting publicity. Just like COVID happened, and now we get to, be able to preach even more extensively electronically than we used to. And that is an advantage for us. Having said all of that, we have to try to do what we can through ISKCON Bangladesh to see about this particular brahmachari leader and what has to be, done to help him. But we're getting publicity out of that. That's free publicity around the whole world. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Pariksit Prabhu. Jai.
Hare Krishna. Go to Srila Prabhupada.
It's such an important lesson. Thank you for elaborating on that.
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy. Jai. Any other? If not, then it's always a pleasure to serve. Mataji is going to speak.
Always a nice class. Thank you very much for lot of information. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
It's all the Guru and Guranga's
always I enjoy the class. Thank you very much.
Krishna's mercy. Jai. Okay. What? Any other points before?
For the class.
Krishna's mercy. Thank you, Mataji. Jai. Go Srila Prabhupada. All right. Vanchakalpatarubhishta kripa
Kripa
sindhubhya
sindhuvhi
eva cha
Patitanam
patitanam
Pavanebhyo
pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namah.
namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
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 Wednesday, Gita Jayanti, go spill your heart out in reciting Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.